Welcome to the monthly Consumer Issues program hosted by Cornell Cooperative Extension, Tompkins County. On the second Thursday of each month, we're joined by New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher, who makes a presentation on a topic of consumer interest. Today, he will give us a charitable giving update. After his presentation, Mr. Danaher will answer questions that viewers have submitted to CCE Tompkins in the Zoom chat box. This presentation also will be available on the CCE Tompkins YouTube channel and will be broadcast next month on Mondays on Public Access Channel 15. Thank you for joining us today. And now here is New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher with today's program.
Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, everyone. For those of you watching in the morning, good afternoon for those who are watching in the afternoon, and good evening for those who are watching in the evening. But this is a very important topic, especially at this time of year, because we are fast approaching the holiday season. And for those of you watching, if it hasn't reached the entire holiday season yet, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday. This is an apropos topic because it deals with charitable giving and how to be a good consumer when making a charitable gift. New Yorkers are a very generous society, very generous state. We are donating to charitable causes all the time, donating our time, our talents, and our treasures. Principally, we'll talk about our treasures today, but I know many of you out there use your time and your various talents to contribute to those who may not necessarily have everything that they need. As far as treasures go, New York State tax records, the last that I was able to check, showed from tax returns and charitable deductions that people take, that New Yorkers give, this is back in 2017 was the last records that I could discover, $42.5 billion to charitable causes. That's up from $37 billion just the year before that. So I'm sure it's significantly higher even than that. Funds can be raised in many different fashions. They can be raised directly by charities themselves. And sometimes we think that when we get a charitable solicitation call that it is coming directly from the charity, but that is not always the case. Sometimes charities hire third-party fundraisers in order to raise their funds for them. And that could be any host of reasons. One, that third-party fundraisers, that's their business. And so they know the business very well and may have the insight into how to raise these charitable funds as compared to just the organization itself. Also, the organization may not have the staff in order to do their charitable fundraising. Therefore, they will sometimes farm it out to a third-party entity. So these funds that are raised by third-party entities are considered to be professional fundraisers. And in New York State, professional fundraisers must be registered with our office, the Attorney General's office. And in actuality, their contract, they should have a contract with the charity that details the terms and conditions of this fundraising program. These fundraising programs must be reported to our office, and those reports are filed by the third-party fundraiser, and that records must be kept. As a result, our office actually has reports every year on third-party raised funds. And I actually have a copy of the latest report. It's called Pennies for Charity. This is the one that was actually issued last November, which would have been in November of 2020. And it covers the fundraising campaigns from 2019. I expect very shortly, if not even now, when you are viewing this program, that report has come out for the 2020 fundraising year. And I point that out because there's some interesting statistics. We've put out this Pennies for Charity every year. And I know that it typically was coming out at maybe 65% of the funds that are raised through these third-party campaigns. actually get turned over to the charity. The remaining funds be like 30%, 28% was being retained by the third-party fundraiser themselves. The most recent report that I have covered that year showed that $1.2 billion was raised by third-party fundraising campaigns. In that report, though, the amount kept by the fundraisers has shrunk. It's down to, in that year, was 28%, or $364 million. 72%, thankfully, was going on to the charitable entities so that they could use it to fulfill their charitable missions. Just to point out to you, though, that in 31%, so almost a third of the cases, less than 50% of the money raised was turned over to the charity. And in fact, 17% of the campaigns, the expenses in the fundraising for the campaigns actually exceeded the amount of revenue that was generated as a result of the campaigns. Therefore, the charities actually lost money in those cases where the expenses were higher than what was turned over. So just something to keep in mind when we get that call for raising funds for a particular entity. First thing that you might think about is, who's raising this money, and how much of my $1 that I give will actually go toward the charitable purpose? Based on the statistics that we have from 2019, 72 cents of your dollar on average would go to the charity, and 28 cents would go toward the costs of the fundraising. Again, something to keep in mind. And depending on what the fundraising contract says, maybe you would want to consider, well, I'll make a direct contribution to the charity rather than going through this solicitor, because then I'll know maybe more of my money will go. Some contracts are different. It might be that any funds that is raised by the charity during the fundraising campaign time period is partially split between the fundraiser and the charity, but it depends on what their contract is. We can't assume, even if we make our direct contribution to the charity itself, you can't necessarily assume that every penny of that dollar is going to go toward the program for which you are contributing to. And legitimately, charities can use the money that they receive to cover their overhead and other expenses. If you donate $1, there's an infrastructure that a charity has. I mean, even your best local charities have expenses. They have staff that they hire. They have overhead expenses. They have facilities that they rent or own. They have the light bill, the heat bill, and all that. So there are legitimate expenses that need to be covered. So we can't assume that, well, if the campaign that's being run by XYZ charity is for finding homes for homeless people. We can't assume that $1 that we give is going to automatically go and go toward paying the rent of a person that needs housing, because there's the infrastructure of the charity that needs to legitimately run itself. So hopefully a good share of that dollar will go toward that charitable purpose, but maybe not the entire time. And let's talk about charities. What are charities? Charitable entities are typically what legally are called not-for-profit corporations. So in New York, we have laws set up under the not-for-profit corporation law about how not-for-profits are created. It's a not-for-profit corporation. So it's a separate entity, a corporation, whose mission is a charitable purpose. Unlike a regular corporation, The not-for-profit corporation does not have shareholders. So in your standard corporation, I'll just grab Walmart, let's say, corporation, has shareholders. Shareholders are simply the owners of the business. And we all know and hear about how shares are traded on stock exchanges and that sort of thing. But owning a share of stock makes you an owner. So if you own a share of stock of Walmart, you are an owner of the company. Not-for-profit companies are different. They do not have shareholders. They don't have owners of the company. They may have members, but those members are not owners. And the big difference is between a regular corporation and a not-for-profit corporation. And this is where people sometimes get confused, is that the money or the assets of the corporation, and let's talk about the profits. So if a regular corporation makes profits and Walmart makes a profit, the profit can be paid to the owners of the company. And typically in a regular business corporation, it's dividends to shareholders. That's just return of the profits to the shareholders or owners. The not-for-profit corporations is a slight misnomer in that some people think that a not-for-profit corporation can't make money because it's not for profit, but that's not true. Not-for-profit corporations can make money. It's actually the difference between a business corporation and a not-for-profit corporation is what you do with those profits. Regular business, regular corporation can go to the money can go to the shareholders. In a not-for-profit corporation, the assets of the corporation must be used for the charitable mission for which that not-for-profit exists. To make matters more complicated, not-for-profit corporations in New York are broken into two categories. There used to be four categories, so now just two categories. There is a charitable not-for-profit corporations and non-charitable not-for-profit corporations. And what's the difference between the two? The principal difference between the two is that charitable not-for-profit corporations are exactly what it sounds like. They're charities. They use their funds for charitable purposes. Could be charitable, educational, all kinds of different charitable categories that it would fall into. Non-charitable not-for-profit corporations are typically your fraternal type organizations, your clubs that exist really for the benefit of the members, your local Elks Club, local Moose Club, the AOH, the Ancient Order of Hibernians. They exist for the benefit of the members themselves. And so it isn't that the money that's made can be handed to the members, but they exist to facilitate the membership. For example, the Elks Club, local Elks Club, usually they have a building, they have meals once a week or something, and people come in and pay they have a bar frequently, and people gather, like-minded individuals to support the Elks Club, the AOH, those types of organizations. They meet and they have fraternal meetings, and many of them have different individual missions that they use to benefit their community as well as the membership. And as compared to a straight charity, which I'll just grab a big one just because it's out there, is just the Red Cross. It benefits the disaster victims. They do have their own infrastructure. They have executive directors. They have staff, all kinds of staff. It's a large organization. They send people out to assist in disasters, things like that. A great cause. and that they'll use their funds to help support those disaster victims. Whereas compared to the Elks Club, the membership is kind of benefited by their operations. And as a result, the oversight of the two different types of not-for-profits is different. With a fraternal organization, the members themselves can oversee and make sure that for lack of a better term, the executive branch, the officers and all that are acting in the membership's best interest. So there's kind of some oversight there. Whereas for a charitable not-for-profit corporation, there is less oversight in the sense that the disaster victims are really not in a position to oversee what's going on with the Red Cross. That leads to the fact that under New York law, the Attorney General's office is directed by statute. There's laws out there that gives the Attorney General the legal oversight of charitable corporations, and more particularly or over charitable funds and charitable benefits. Primarily the focus for the Attorney General's office are on charitable not-for-profit corporations. Although we do have authority over non-charitable, there is a membership there that actually can kind of do the oversight, although we do still have authority over them. But we are closer scrutiny over the charitable not-for-profit corporations. So these charities need to fulfill their charitable mission, and that's what our office oversees. We look at them required by law. The charitable not-for-profit corporations are required to be registered with our Charities Bureau. The Attorney General's office actually has a Charities Bureau, a specific bureau that oversees this. They're required to register, and then depending on what their assets and income are over the years, over a particular year, they may be required and are frequently required to file annual financial statements with our Charities Bureau. And I point that out because that information is publicly available through the Charities Bureau website. The Charities Bureau website is NYS Charities, N as in New York State, NYS Charities, CHARITIES, charities.com. If you go to that website, that will be the Charities Bureau website. It is a really, really good website. I do the charities work in the Binghamton region, which would include Tompkins County. I've done it for 20 some years. And so charities who want to change their purposes or want to dissolve have to actually get either Attorney General approval or approval from a court on notice to the Attorney General's office. So our office takes complaints and we search and see that things are being done properly. We, over the years, the Attorney General has joined itself, the Attorney General, or the Attorney General in conjunction with other state charity regulators, other attorney generals from other states, or the Federal Trade Commission or other governmental regulators have joined together or done individually actions to shut down sham charities, soliciting money through using online requests and seeking donations from people that they then don't funnel toward the charitable purpose that we talked about earlier. They end up sticking the money in their own pockets to benefit themselves, the fundraisers themselves, rather than the charitable purpose. And our office has brought cases to shut down charities that are not using it for that particular purpose. Our office oversees estates Someone dies and they give 10% of the remainder of their estate to a particular charity. Our office statutorily is involved in overseeing that to make sure that the charity gets what the charity is supposed to go. And in particular, we don't represent the charities. So we don't represent the Red Cross. We don't represent the local community foundation. What the statutory license to our office to oversee is for the benefit for the unknown indefinite beneficiaries of gifts to charity. So the common example I'll use is we don't represent the Red Cross. We represent those unknown indefinite disaster victims. They don't have any say. Somebody has to watch their interest. Frequently, our interest is aligned with the charity. So in the Ithaca area, I'll use an example, a big charity that benefits the entire community is Cornell University. Cornell University actually has its own counsel's office, so they have attorneys. They receive donations from estates. Let's say it's a graduate from the class of 1942 of Cornell, who through his or her professional career became a multimillionaire. And they may say, hey, when I die, I want a certain percentage of my estate to go to Cornell for a specific purpose. So again, Cornell will be involved because they're the actual charity. They have counsel's office. And our office will also be involved because we will represent statutorily those people who might benefit because Cornell got that gift at some point in time. So that's how it kind of lays out. So there's charity, there's estates that make donations. There's trusts. So someone may set up a trust. It could be during their lifetime or in their will as a part of their death. They want a trust set up where the income, I want this X number of dollars set aside. Let's say it's $1 million. I want it set aside and I want it to go in perpetuity forever. So I want that $1 million to really work over the years. And I want the income from that $1 million gift to be used to feed the poor. So the trust is there and administers that money, makes sure that it's properly invested, and then donates the income that is generated every year to a food bank. Or maybe the trust sets up its own food bank and uses the money to distribute food. So there's trust that our office oversees. And if a trust wants to terminate, let's say there's not much money left and it wants to terminate, they actually have to get court approval to terminate the trust, and it'll go through our office as well. And also we oversee charitable organizations. So those charities that are operating in your particular community, they should be registered with our Charities Bureau, and they should be filing their annual financial reports. So that's kind of how it's all set up. Now, as far as forms of solicitation, they come in all different ways. I know that all of you out there have received in one shape or form a charitable solicitation. It could be through the mail. It could be over the telephone. And understand that we in New York have a do not call registry to prevent those telemarketing calls that we still seem to get all the time. But your number can be put on a do not call registry. And understand that for charitable solicitation, that's one exception to the do not call registry. It does not cover charitable solicitation. So if you're on the do not call registry, you may still receive those charitable solicitation calls. It can be through personal contact. I know some of us don't think about this, but that table that's set up outside a retail store when we go to the mall or our local stores, and there might be a food bank that's raising money, or it might be a group of Girl Scouts who are selling their Girl Scout cookies at that. That's a charitable solicitation that's just done in person. I know the big one now, as we're into the holiday season, is the bell ringers. So we have them outside with the Salvation Army with their red kettles, and we're always throwing our change into that bucket. That's a form of personal contact. It could be door to door is another form of personal contact, although we don't recommend making cash donations to somebody that's going door to door. And more recently, this is one that I haven't added before in the prior talks we've done about this, but more recently, I have to bring it up because it's increasing rapidly, and that is in internet solicitations, online solicitations. They are growing rapidly. In the Pennies for Charity booklet that I have here that you can find online at our Charities Bureau website, indicated that internet solicitations have increased at a rate of about 8% per year. They're more and more and more going toward the internet. And it's happening in several different ways. There's a thing called crowdfunding, which is, and there are websites that actually do crowdfunding, which is you can go to a website. There's many out there. Most popular ones that you hear about all the time are GoFundMe or Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and there's many others. Sometimes it's a platform that raises funds for particular purposes or general categories. Like it might be, there's website platforms out there that raise money or that you can sign up for to raise money because you're starting a business. And it's people seeking fundraising to start your business. Or it might be for a particular type of charitable cause that you can go on. And so that is happening more and more and more. I'll give you an example. I actually had a case that involved GoFundMe. It was a GoFundMe account that was created by someone to raise funds to help in the name of a individual who met a very tragic and extremely untimely death. What happened was it was a college senior who was a good kid, just a great kid. By all accounts, he was just well liked. He was not the honor student. He did not have any unique talent other than the unique talent, by all accounts, was just a great kid, a really great kid. And in about a week or two before he was graduating from college, he had a tragic accident, and he ended up passing away. So a person who was acquainted with this young man's parents, actually worked with one of the parents, not a close friend or anything, but worked with one of the parents, went on to GoFundMe and started a campaign to raise money in the name of this young man. And it circulated by emails around, and people made contributions. It was not a large campaign. It was only you can set the amount, a target of what you want to raise. In this case, I believe it was about $5,000. And people got word of it and knew this great kid and wanted to make donations. And they were small donations, $10 here, $20 here, yada, 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 $100 here. And it added up to, and I don't remember the exact number, it didn't reach the $5,000 level, but it was thousands of dollars. And it was being raised for the memorial fund that was being started by the parents in their son's name. And this person, when you start one of these campaigns, you are the fundraiser. So this person who was raising the money GoFundMe would collect, took a little bit off the top for their costs and stuff, and then sent the checks to this person who was the one who started the campaign. And as it turns out, this person did not turn over all of the money that was raised to the family was in charge of the memorial fund. Came to us and we did some research and we got information from GoFundMe, and sure enough, the checks that were paid out from GoFundMe to the individual who was raising the money was more than the check or checks that the person wrote to the memorial fund. We got involved. We ended up getting a judgment against this person who was raising the money, and ended up having to go and garnish her wages from her employer to cover the amount of the judgment for the money that she did not turn over. There's even a better side to the story after our office got involved, was that GoFundMe felt so bad about this having happened that GoFundMe dipped into its own pocket and wrote a check to the memorial fund to help cover any money that was raised in this campaign that was not turned over. So the story ended well. And we also got a judgment that prohibits the person who solicited the funds from engaging in raising of charitable funds in the future to stop that from going on. Also, in addition to internet, kind of under the same category are text donations that would go by text, email campaigns as well, where you may get an email that funds are being solicited. So it's happening in all different ways. As society evolves and our involvement in the internet evolves, so do even charitable solicitations. So how are funds raised, or what are they used for, or what types of things can be done? You could be solicited to buy tickets to send a disadvantaged child to a show. You may be, I know I've been in campaigns, and I think many of you probably have been in campaigns where you go to a particular restaurant at a particular evening, and they say that they'll donate a certain percentage of your bill to a particular charity. It might be a local soccer club. The youth soccer club is raising funds, and if you go to this particular restaurant on a particular night, they're going to donate 20% of the proceeds, all the revenue from the dinners that night to that cause. It could be raffles, people raising funds through raffles. And I'll go through that in a second. It could be direct contributions, just donate X number of dollars to a particular cause. It could be a golf tournament. A lot of golf tournaments out there to raise funds for a particular cause. So it takes on many different forms. Let me kind of reach back into the raffle thing. New York has laws regarding raffles. So you need to know that only charities can use raffles to raise funds. You can't think, I need to buy a new car. So what I'll do is I'll have a 50-50 raffle. And 50% of the money that I receive, I'll pay out in proceeds. And the remaining 50% I'll use, and then I can use it to buy a new car. It is not allowed. It is illegal. You must be a charity in order to raise these funds. So that's why you'll be at the local high school football game, and the booster club will have the 50-50 that goes on at the game where they don't. Well, they raise a fund. They're a booster club. They're a charity. They receive the money. They pay whoever wins it, and then they're able to use the other funds to help pay for the cheerleading uniforms, or help pay for the posters of the players and cheerleaders on their senior night, or whatever it is. As long as they're using that money to fulfill their mission, they can do so. But if you're not a charity, you can't use a raffle to raise funds. So the most important thing as far as charitable solicitations is that we need to be good donators. We need to understand and know what's going on, know who we're donating this money or contribution we're going to make. We need to know who it's going to. And the best thing that we can do is to be conscious and think about our charitable giving. We want to encourage everyone to be generous with your time and your talents and your treasures, but do so wisely. And what are some of the things that we do to be a good donator? And those are, one, have a charitable giving plan ahead of time. Don't be on a whim, just throwing money out there and not thinking about it. The best thing you can do is figure out, what are your charitable causes? What do you think is important? House the needy, feed the needy, contribute to this particular organization, this particular school. Who do I want to benefit with my charitable dollars? And then you can decide ahead of time. Also, decide how much can you afford? How much can you donate? I want to be generous. I want to donate X number of dollars this year. Maybe you say it's $500. Decide who it is that you can donate that $500 to. It may be multiple organizations, so you give $100 each. It might be more than that, where you give less than $100 each. It might be one organization that really, really strikes your heart and you want to make the donation to. That way, one, you aren't overcommitting yourself to something that you cannot fulfill. And two, you're actually making a direct donation to those organizations that really, really are the ones that you want to support. So the first thing is, know who you're going to be able to give your limited dollars to and decide ahead of time. Then you won't be swayed when somebody contacts you out of the blue on this new charity. You go, oh, wow, that may be a good one too. And then you pay that. And then you pay that. And then you pay that to these other ones that you never thought about before. And then you don't have the money to make the donation to the organization that you really, really want to benefit. So be a good donator and be conscious and thinking about it. The most important thing that you can do is give yourself time. Give yourself time to think about it. Get literature that the charity may have. Do your research. Go to the Attorney General's website and look up the charity. Every charity that files with our Charities Bureau, you can look up. Right on the main page at charitiesnys.com, there is a box, and you can put the name of the charity in there, click on it, and you can actually look at the filings that they have made with our office. Those filings could include, and frequently do include, their tax returns. You can actually see how much they received in donations. You can see how much they paid out for those charitable purposes. You can see how much they paid out for overhead expenses and fundraising costs. And you can make an informed decision to say, wow, a really large percentage of these donated dollars really went to their programs. They went to their cause. And you may say, I'm going to donate to that group. Or you may look at their tax return and you may see that, hey, their expenses in running this program or running their office operations is a lot higher than I thought. I'd rather contribute my money toward the cause, or more of my money to the cause, than to the management expenses associated with this entity. And then you can make an informed decision. It's not our place to tell you, well, you should donate to this organization or you should donate to that organization. It's our hope that you will use this information that we have to make a more informed decision on your donations. Another thing is, don't give money to someone you don't know. So if there is that GoFundMe solicitation, one thing that you need to check out is, who is the one that's raising that money? Do you know that person? Those crowdfundings, fundraisers are being raised by a particular person. And you want to know who that person is. They're really designed for the local contribution to those who make the contributions to someone they know. So it's John Smith, who everybody knows, started a campaign for a particular purpose. And you know John's a good guy. John really is committed to the community and to this particular charity. And you're comfortable knowing that when he gets the funds from GoFundMe or Indiegogo or whoever it comes from, that you're confident that that money is going to be turned over and used for that particular purpose. If you don't know John Smith, you should think twice about making the donation, because how do you know that that money is going to be turned over to the cause that you intend it to be given to? So know who it is that you're dealing with. Somebody comes over and knocks on your door and wants you to give money for a cause. You may think the cause is legitimate, but do you know who that person is? Do you know that if that money is going to be given and used for the purpose for which it's intended? Maybe you would be better off finding out what the organization is and sending the money directly to the organization rather than giving to that person who shows up at your door. Another thing is always pay by check so that you have a record of it. Make the check, well, if you use a credit card, the same thing. Make sure it is going directly to the charity itself. If somebody says, well, you can make the check out to me and I'll make sure that it goes to the charity, don't do it. Think twice for a couple of reasons. One reason being is, how are you going to have a record of the charitable donation if you intend to deduct it from on your taxes, or that you have a record that you made a donation to a particular charity? How are you going to know it went there? And how are you going to get your charitable deduction unless you have a record of it going to that particular charity? So if you write the check out to John Smith, and John Smith is going to take it over to the Red Cross, John Smith will get the deduction on his taxes, and you won't, because you won't have any record of it. Make the check out, or if you're making a charitable contribution, like with a credit card or something, make sure there's a record that you made it directly to the particular charity. Actually, make sure to ask yourself, how much is going toward that charitable purpose? Be wary of solicitations that come to you that say all net proceeds will go to the charitable purpose. Net proceeds means after deduction of expenses. So if you donate $1 and all the expenses of fundraising are 99 cents, the statement would be true. All net proceeds went over to the charity, but not all the proceeds went over to the charity. Only 1 penny went over to the charity. So be very careful about what's said to you about that. And be particularly mindful that if you ask about that, if the charity, the fundraiser is not willing to give you that information. I'll use an example. I one time had a call many years ago, and I said to the person, hey, can you tell me how much of my money that I give you, what percentage of that will go to the charity? And interestingly, the person who called me, who was undoubtedly a third-party fundraiser, said, I don't have that information right now, but I would be glad to get it for you if you'd like. I'll have a supervisor call you back. And I said, no problem. You have that supervisor call me back. And when we have that discussion and that answer, then I'll make a decision whether or not I want to make a decision. And surprisingly, nobody ever called me back. So if someone, if someone is hesitant to give you any of that information, I would be hesitant to make any donation. Legitimate charities will give you that information. If they aren't willing to give you that information, you need to question whether or not they're legitimate. Again, you can check on the Attorney General's website as well and look up the charity before you make the charitable solicitation. Don't be rushed into it. If somebody says they're going to send somebody over to your house and pick up the donation right now, don't be rushed into it. Wait till you get the legitimate information. Protect yourself. Give yourself time. Understand all the terms of your donation. Check into the charity. You could, if they use a third-party fundraiser, you can look up the Pennies for Charity that is on the Attorney General's website. Or if you want to look up the charity itself, it's on the Attorney General's charity's website. You can look it up. You can do general internet searches against that particular charitable entity. BBB, the Better Business Bureau, has a website. I believe it's www.give.org that you can look up. I'd also like to address the charities themselves. I mean, or those of you who want to be parts of charities, be on boards of directors and that sort of thing. Understand that as a board member of a charity, you are not a figurehead. You are there to help the overall running of the organization, help to fulfill its mission. So there are responsibilities. There are also fiduciary financial responsibilities of those who are board members to make sure that they're properly overseeing the finances of the company, the charity. You should, as a board member, receive financial reports from the treasurer of the organization, and that you have a fiduciary responsibility to understand those financial statements and also to make sure that the mission is being fulfilled and that the funds are being used to fulfill that mission. I'll refer you back to the Charities Bureau website. There's a ton of valuable information on there and booklets. One of the booklets is called Right from the Start, How to Do Things Right from the Start. It gives guidance to prospective board members on what their responsibilities are, what they should be doing. Really some good general insight into how boards operate and that how your responsibilities can be fulfilled. Be very interested in the organization and be very thorough to keep an eye on what the organization is doing and to guide it in such a way that it will be fulfilling its charitable mission. I hope all of you that contribute, participate on boards, do your due diligence, and really work toward the generous spirit that all of us have here in New York, and that it will guide these charities on into the future and also financially support them, because they do provide a very valuable service to our individual communities. And interestingly, charities are a very large employer in our local communities. So we want them to make sure that they're fulfilling their mission and be able to support themselves into the future. Do your due diligence. Make sure your charitable dollars are being used for the purpose for which you intend it, so that your generosity won't go to waste. If anybody has any questions regarding this, I'd be glad to answer them. I'm going to shoot it back to Sandy so that she can let me know if we have anything. Otherwise, for those of you who are watching this before the holidays, I hope you have a happy, healthy, and joyous holiday season.
I'm not seeing anybody any questions in the chat, Mike, but thanks for an excellent presentation. And thanks to those who joined us today for this presentation. Mr. Danaher will be back with us on Thursday, December 9th at 11 a.m. with a program on avoiding consumer problems on the internet. You can find a Zoom link on the event listing on our website at ccetompkins.org/events. Thanks again for attending today.